Learning English with English faculties.
All right, let's dive right into this explainer and crack the case of OET reading parts B and C. If you're preparing for the occupational English test, you probably already know that securing a grade B can feel like a pretty huge mountain to climb. But today, we're going to change our mindset. We are going to learn how to think like a true medical detective. We'll use the clues hidden right there on the page to find the correct answers, even when those medical texts seem incredibly complex.
Here's our quick roadmap for today's investigation. We'll meet reading parts B and C, unpack the exact format of the test, learn how to separate facts from opinions, look at tackling complex texts, and finally go over some really smart time management strategies.
So let's start with Section 1, Meet Reading B and C. It's super important to look at the big picture of the reading subtest and see exactly where these two parts fit into your exam day.
Think of this as your mission briefing. Your test is split into two distinct sections. After a very strict, fast-paced 15 minutes for Part A, those papers are collected. They're gone. Then you get a 45-minute block to conquer Parts B and C. And honestly, the beauty here is that you manage this combined time completely at your own pace. You've got 22 questions to answer across these two parts, and you are entirely in control of the clock.
Okay, before we go any further, I want you to take a deep breath and just remember this exact quote from the official OET Teacher's Handbook. You do not need to know every medical condition in the world. You're actually not being tested on your clinical skills today. Your job as a detective is simply to uncover the meaning of the English used in a healthcare setting. Keep that in mind, and the whole test instantly feels so much less intimidating, right?
Let's move right into Section 2, Unpacking the Test Format. To succeed here, you have to know exactly what kind of documents you'll be investigating.
Now, what's really interesting is how drastically different the texts in Part B are from the texts in Part C. Part B gives you 6 completely independent, short extracts. We're talking just 100 to 150 words long, each with a 3-option multiple-choice question. Part C, on the other hand, gives you 2 long articles, about 800 words each, with 4-option questions. So Part B is testing your grasp of quick workplace updates, while Part C is testing your ability to follow long, complex arguments.
Let's look closer at Part B. You're going to read the exact type of internal communications you probably see every single day on the ward or in the clinic. We're talking staff memos, policy updates, or maybe instruction manuals for medical equipment. Picture an email reminding nurses how to calibrate a new blood pressure machine, that kind of thing. Your main focus here is figuring out the purpose. You're reading to ask yourself, what action needs to be taken by the healthcare professional right now?
In contrast, Part C uses what we call discursive texts. That sounds fancy, but it really just means the text discusses a topic from multiple different angles. These are like articles from medical journals written for a broad healthcare audience. For this part, you're reading to understand a writer's argument, the viewpoints of other medical professionals, and maybe the results of some new research. Which naturally leads us to Section 3, Facts, Opinions, and Main Ideas. Let's see how all of this builds into the specific skills you need to get those Part C questions right. As our medical detective, you've got to carefully separate a stated medical fact from what the writer actually feels or believes about that fact. A fact is just objective data, like saying the patient's temperature is 38 degrees. An opinion reflects an attitude, like a researcher saying, I believe this drug will totally revolutionize treatment. Part C heavily tests your ability to separate what is actually happening from what the author thinks about it.
Now listen up, because this is a massive trap. The correct answers in multiple choice are almost never written word for word in the text. The test creators love to use different language and synonyms to summarize the main ideas. So if you're just scanning the text to match the exact vocabulary found in option A, B, or C, you're highly likely to pick the wrong answer. You absolutely must read for the underlying meaning.
Okay, on to Section 4, Tackling Complex Medical Texts. We all know that seeing a huge text full of unfamiliar jargon can cause a little panic, so let's look at exactly how to decode it. I hear this all the time. It's arguably the biggest fear candidates face. How in the world do you survive an article about a medical specialty you've never personally studied? What if you're a nurse reading about a super specific dental procedure, or a pharmacist reading about complex orthopedics? Remember our golden rule. The test does not assume you have specialist knowledge of the topic. The answers are always hidden right there in the text. So when you inevitably hit an unknown word, use these simple steps instead of panicking. First, keep calm, and whatever you do, don't stop reading. Often, if you just look at the context clues, meaning the sentence right before the word and the sentence right after it, you'll grasp the general idea. You don't need a perfect dictionary definition. You just need enough context to answer the question. The test is actively checking to see if you can do exactly this.
Just look at how these questions are sliced up. This chart highlights a massive structural reality of the exam. Part C holds a huge 16 questions. Because Part C makes up such a large portion of your overall score, you've got to protect your time. You absolutely need enough minutes left on the clock to evaluate those long, complex articles properly.
And that is a perfect segue into our final section, Smart Time Management Strategies. Let's explore how to safely manage the clock during this critical portion of the test.
45. Burn this number into your brain. You have exactly 45 minutes to manage independently for both Part B and Part C combined. Nobody is going to announce when you should switch from Part B to Part C. You are the detective in charge of this investigation, which means you are in total control of the clock. So, here are your golden rules for time management. Number 1, never waste 5 minutes puzzling over one really hard question. An easier one might be waiting for you on the very next page. Second, in Part C, the questions actually follow the order of the text, which is great because it helps you locate information way faster. Third, the first text in both parts is usually slightly easier than the second. And finally, there's no negative marking in the OET. You don't lose points for wrong answers, so leave absolutely nothing blank. Always guess if you have to.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground today. You now know the structure of the tests, how to hunt for actual meaning instead of just matching exact words, how to handle unfamiliar vocabulary using context clues, and how to rigorously manage those 45 minutes. Take these strategies directly into your practice sessions. Look for those clues hidden in plain sight. So the only question left is, are you ready to crack the case and finally conquer OET reading?